Thanks for your company. Let's start in Parliament, where MPs have condemned the forceful takeover of the school feeding program by party agents following the change in government. The takeovers have led to a suspension of the program in some parts of the country. MP for Idura-Sechi-Dumase, Brima Mohammed Bawa, told the House provision of food for more than 14,000 pupils in his constituency has been halted since the beginning of the year over disagreements resulting from the takeover. He says this is negatively affecting the quality of education in the area as pupils are refusing to go to school. Our parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku-Gakpo joins me on the phone with more details. Thank you, Joseph, and good afternoon. Now, what have other MPs and the Speaker been saying about this issue?
Well, the Member of Parliament for the North Tongue area, that's Samuel Okujeto-Ablakwa, who is also the former Deputy Minister for Education, has been attributing the situation to what he describes as partisanship. He gave a history of how the school feeding program came into being back in 2005 and indicated that when it was first established, the situation was that a lot of those who were recruited to actually cook for the school children were persons believed to be members of the New Patriotic Party, and in some cases officials of the New Patriotic Party. And when the NDC government took over subsequently, they also had to get all these people out and bring in NDC people to take over. And so the situation that we are seeing now is something he sees as a repetition of history. And so what he's calling for is a holistic approach which will depoliticize the activities of the school feeding program and ensure that regardless of which party is in power, there won't be the situation of one person taking over forcefully or the other party officials complaining about this. This observation of his was backed by the majority and the minority leaders, that Osaiti Mensah and also Haruna Idrisu, who also backed the need to decouple the activities of the program from any partisan considerations. But the Speaker of Parliament, Professor Michael Kwe, has referred the issue at hand to the committees on gender and social protection and also the committee on education, that they should investigate the issue and make appropriate recommendations within 4 weeks on how they can ensure that the school children who are in the Ejura area who are not getting food would be provided the necessary food as the school feeding program continues.
All right, Joseph, apart from this number we are receiving from the MP for Idura-Sechi-Dumase, that is over 14,000 pupils, do you have any MPs giving us an estimation of the number of pupils who have been affected?
Not exactly. In the case of the MP for the Ejura area, he came to the House with a prepared speech to deliver a statement on this particular phenomenon, and so he quoted the figures to back this particular concern that he's raising. He is asking that in the Idura-Sechi-Dumase area, the suspension is something that came off from the level of the Idura-Sechi-Dumase District Assembly, and that's where he's getting those figures from. He said that himself he's visited some schools in the area, and he's observed the situation where the attendance there is low, and also issues about truancy are very high. And so he's asking that there's the need for Parliament to compel the Idura-Sechi-Dumase District Assembly to, as soon as possible, resume the situation where food will be provided to these 14,000 people in its constituency.
And Joseph, in Parliament today, we know that the Appointments Committee is continuing with the vetting for deputy regional ministers nominated by President Akufo-Addo. Any news from there?
So rather, what is happening is that the chairman of the Appointment Committee, Joseph Osei-Wusu, is expected to present a report when it comes to the vetting of the 10 deputy regional ministers, which was done between Tuesday and Thursday. That vetting started on Tuesday. The first four appeared on Tuesday. The second four appeared on Wednesday. And yesterday, the final 2 deputy regional ministers appeared. And so the chairman of the Appointment Committee is expected to present a report recommending the approval to the House, and it's expected that those 10 would be approved today. A timetable when it comes to the vetting of the other 54 who have been, announced by the President is not yet out. The minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, who is a member of the committee, stated on the floor of Parliament a while ago that vetting for those persons is expected to begin sometime next week, Friday, because it's now that they would issue a statement out to the public calling for memoranda for people to submit documents on any concerns that they may have with them. So the earliest that we can see a vetting of that 54 batch of deputy ministers would be from next week Thursday, and so no vetting is happening in the House today.
All right, so apart from the issue of the school feeding program, what other issues came up for discussion today, Joseph.
There's also been concerns about traditional leaders and their involvement in partisan politics. There was a statement on the floor of the House a while ago by the Member of Parliament for the German North area that Siaka 7, and he quoted portions of the Constitution to say that it is very clear that the requirements of the laws of Ghana, a chief shall not take part in active politics, and any chief who wishes to engage in politics needs to first abdicate his or her skin or stool. But he observed in a statement on the floor of the House that this has not been the situation over the years, and it's eroding the kind of respect that chiefs possess when it comes to all our activities here in Ghana and our culture generally, and he's calling for an end to that.
Well, thank you very much for those updates. My colleague Joseph Opoku-Gakpo coming to us from Parliament, and he's been talking about the fact that the issue of school feeding program has been raised on the floor, and MPs are calling that the system be looked into again to avoid the partisan nature that it has now. Now, an Accra High Court has ordered government to, as a matter of urgency, establish a domestic violence support fund to provide free medical care for domestic violence victims. Private legal practitioner Martin Pebu filed the application, arguing that a decade after the enactment of the Domestic Violence Act, government was yet to comply with the provision that makes this imperative. The AG's department, however, did not enter an appearance, leaving Justice Anthony Yeboah to direct that the 6-month limit takes effect upon service and initiation of the process by the AG. Lawyer Pebu said the court's decision will encourage victims to report issues of domestic violence to the police.
The Domestic Violence Act was passed in 2007, and since the state, or they'll say the Ghana as a nation, has seen the need to provide free medical care to victims of domestic violence, I thought that it is time for us to implement it. So in short, why do we pass a law and wait donkey years to implement it? You see, it is a case that poverty is real in Ghana today. There are over 200,000 families, or persons, 200,000 persons on LEAP. That's the Livelihood Empowerment Program, right? Yeah, so these are very poor persons. So it occurred to me that, so if these are so poor that government has to support them every month in order for them to survive, then it means that for these persons, when they suffer domestic violence, they are likely to have the cases prosecuted, because evidence from the police and other stakeholders have shown that certain persons, when they are involved in domestic violence and report the same to the police, these persons who are given medical forms to take to the hospital, and usually the form has to be endorsed by a doctor after examining the alleged victim, that the evidence is that a lot of these persons are unable to return to the police because they are unable to pay medical doctors to fill in those forms, that's to examine them and fill in those forms. So putting these facts together, it moved me that no, we should take steps. We should implement the law so that at least everybody will have an equal chance of being able to report to the police when there is domestic violence, and also of being able to go through the process for these perpetrators to be brought to book.
Well, I'm joined in the studio by my colleague Joseph Akable, who was in court when this verdict was given. Good afternoon, Joseph. Now let's talk about this Domestic Violence Act. What exactly does it say as regards this fund we are talking about?
As far back as 2006, the general feeling then by the government led by President Kufuor was that it was important for such an act to be passed. The argument then is that sometimes when people abuse their wives or when wives abuse their husbands, it could be either ways. When they report the matter to the police issue a medical form for them to go over to the hospital. But when you go to the hospital, who takes care of your bills? If you're a married woman, it means you have to go back to your husband to pay for that same bill. The same man, if reported to the police, that they want the police to deal with him. And because of such cases, you know that in our system, you have most women depending on men. It made it very difficult for women to come forward and report in the event of such abuse. So the act was supposed to come out with a fund that will provide for that. So once you report, the state can provide for your medical forms. If the state has to provide a place where you reside for the time being, whilst the matter is being heard, you also provide that for you. So that was why the act was passed. But interestingly, more than a decade afterwards, we've still not been able to implement it and effectively made it function such that it will be operational for people who have such issues to be catered for appropriately. So that was why Mr. Kwebu headed to court to seek for this ruling.
And how long has he been in court over this issue?
He filed a matter in July 2016, and the interesting bit about it is that the Attorney General's Department, that per our laws, all civil proceedings, they are the nominal defendants, failed to enter an appearance. They were served, they didn't enter an appearance. Even today when judgment was delivered, they were again not in court to hear the matter. That is why the judge is saying that even though I've given him the go-ahead, I've ordered that the state should do this, you first need to serve the judgment, the court to serve the judgment on the Aegis Department. Now, once it is served on the Aegis Department, this is something that has to do with budget. So the Aegis Department, again, have to check from the Finance Ministry whether we have enough money in the budget. If that is not the case, we have to do supplementary budget to provide for that. And once that effect is triggered, then within 6 months, government has to set up that fund.
All right, so let's talk about qualifications. Who qualifies? I know that obviously the fund has been set up for domestic violence victims, but who qualifies? Are there any stringent measures that one has to pass before they access this fund?
So it provides for women and children, also for men, again, who suffer in such instances. And the necessary requirement is that once you file the complaint, so it starts first from the medical care that you need to be provided. So immediately you report it. That is the ideal case. If you report it quickly, the medical forms is issued and you go for free medical treatment. That is what is supposed to be the case. So the hope is that once this judgment is given effect, that will take precedence and that will be the practice going forward.
Thank you very much for your time, Joseph Akable, my colleague, bringing us updates from the courts. Now, away from that, Paramount Chief of the Asogli State, Togbi Afede the 14th, says the National House of Chiefs is committed to resolving all chieftaincy disputes in the country. Togbi Afede, who is also a member of the Council of State, indicated there will be accelerated development when traditional authorities get along very well. He was addressing the Bonoahafo Regional House of Chiefs in Sunyani.
The 14th was in Sunyani in a quest to establish a closer relationship with all the regional House of Chiefs in the country. He admonished members of the House to develop a good working and personal relationship with their fellow chiefs and not wait for funerals to do that. He added funerals are not the best occasions to get closer to each other. Togbe Afede the 14th enumerated a 7-point objective of his administration that would propel the National House of Chiefs to great success.
Strengthen our unity is our first objective. Without unity, we cannot achieve much. Secondly, we want to enhance our image, restore nobility, and restore reverence to chieftaincy. Thirdly, we want to enhance our role in governance. Fourthly, enhance our involvement in the development process. Number 5, we want to establish appropriate external relations to support our work. Number 6, we want to enhance our finances and other resources again support our work, because without finance you cannot achieve anything. Finally, we want to strengthen our administration and our accountability. Resources that we are able to attract, we must manage very well and we must account for very well. The idea is to ensure absolute transparency, because only then will people who support us have the confidence to continue to support us.
Bonoahafo Regional Minister Kweku Asomatrem said government recognizes and appreciates the role of the chieftaincy institution in the development of Ghana. He appealed to the Regional House of Chiefs to collectively work towards the development of Bonoahafo, devoid of all political, ethnic, and religious differences.
Since my assumption of duty, my assessment of the situation suggests that many of the chieftaincy disputes are not volatile and do not threaten the peace in the affected traditional areas to a very large extent. However, there are a few of them that are of immediate concern to me, including Popo, Boma, Kato, which need to be resolved immediately. Unfortunately, the various chieftaincy disputes have left in their wake several traditional councils without substantive paramount chiefs. which affects the smooth development of the area. In this regard, I wish to appeal to Nanano and our key makers to move the various processes faster towards the early resolution of these disputes, which do not give the region a good image. Of course, the lawyers are part of it. Nanano, I also wish to use this unique opportunity to plead with Nanano to let us collectively take the necessary proactive measures to bring a closure to these disputes, since they are impacting negatively on the smooth development of the region.
Brong-Ahafo Regional Minister Kweku Asomah was later admitted and installed as the 50th member of the Brong-Ahafo Regional House of Chiefs. Nesta Kafui Ajuman's report for Joy News.
You're watching Joy News today with me, Benes Abubedu. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring you more stories. Please stay with us.